We are live.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as you're able and join me in welcoming City Council and the playing of the national anthem and the reading of the invocation.
As we come together today, we recognize the great responsibilities laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and to use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity and righteousness where freedom prevails and where justice rules. Let us also not forget those who've served our community who are no longer with us, so we must continue to do the work that we must in their memory. Please be seated. Today we have to my right, Chris Gauthier providing clerking services for our meeting with the assistance of Melanie Figueredo, who is behind us. So, Deputy Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councillor Van Tilburg. Present. Councillor McCurry. Here. Councillor Sless.
Present.
Councillor Sullivan.
Present.
Councillor Sokoli.
Present.
Councillor Caputo.
Present.
Councillor Martin.
Here.
Councillor Hunt.
Present.
Councillor Samwell.
Here.
Councillor Carpenter.
Here.
And Mayor Davis.
Present. So we'll now move on to conflicts of interest. This is, if any member has a conflict of interest, this is the time to declare regarding any item on tonight's agenda. I've received prior indication, Councillor Van Tilburg, that you have a conflict you'd like to declare.
Yes, it's 12.4.1, the brownfield financing. And I have relatives that have property next door to that brownfield, and that's a potential conflict.
Anyone else declaring a conflict, please physically raise your hand. Seeing no raised hands, we'll now decide which of the items are going to be separated for discussion purposes. We have three items that have already been separated. Item 12.1.9, the future site plan application for 101 Market Street South, as there are delegates here this evening to speak to that. 12.4.1, Brownfields Financial Tax Incentive Program application 352-356 West Street, because of the conflict that Councillor Van Tilburg just declared. 12.5.2, which is a paramedic service draft 2023 budget. And that's because that requires a 2/3 vote. So members, is there anything else that you want separated for discussion purposes? Yes, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, item 12.3.5. Zoning bylaw amendment.
That's the 461, 467 West Street. Anything else separated? I'd like one item separated. It's from the Finance Committee. And I believe it is, yes, 12.5.4, the allocation of surplus. If does it, then we have the list of items that are going to be separated. I understand, Councillor Caputo, you have the motion to approve all the items in the committee reports that have not been separated for discussion purposes. Would you please read the resolution and state your seconder?
Yes, I move this. My seconder is my ward mate, John Sluss, that all items contained within the committee reports, items 12.1 to 12.6, not separated for discussion purposes, be approved.
So before we take the vote, I'd ask Mr. Deputy Clerk, if you would please read the title of each of the items we're now voting on by consent.
Through the chair, the following items are subject to the vote, starting with Committee of the Whole Operations Report, 12.1.1 City Brantford Electric Vehicle Charging Strategy, 12.1.2 Community Physician Recruitment 2022 Program and 2023 Action Plan, 12.1.3 Repeal of Electronic LED Readograph Sign Policy, item 12.1.4 Year 2023 Capital Projects and Funding Pre-Approvals, item 12.1.5 Accommodations Update POA and CCSD, item 12.1.6 City of Brantford Annual Climate Action Update, item 12.1.7 Briar Park Garden Maintenance, item 12.1.8 Resolution regarding facilitation of volunteerism. From the Social Services Committee, report 12.2.1 Lucy Marco Place Acquisition Rehabilitation, 12.2.2 2022 Annual Update on Brantford Brant Municipal Housing Master Plan, 12.2.3 Ontario Works Quarterly Update Q3, 12.2.4 Update Federal Community Housing Initiative, 12.2.5 Live Well Brantford Brant Q2 to Q3 report. Item 12.2.6 Housing Stability Services and Emergency Shelter System Update. From the Planning Committee report, item 12.3.1 City Initiated Technical Official Plan Amendment. Matters arising from the Supporting People and Business Act, 12.3.2 Official Plan Amendment OP 322 83 Craig Street, 12.3.3 Application for Zoning Bylaw Amendment PZ 14-22 167 Mount Pleasant Street, item 12.3.4 Zoning Bylaw Amendment PZ 16-21. From the Committee of the Whole Planning Administration report, item 12.4.2 Grayfields Community Improvement Plan Budget for the Administration of Capital Funded Grant Programs. Item 12.4.3 Downtown Community Improvement Plan Tax Increment Base Grant Application for 32 Bridge Street. Item 12.4.4 Temporary Delegated Authority Update. 12.4.5 Annual Update on Street Naming. 12.4.6 Outdoor Illumination. Item 12.4.7 Planning Committee Stipend. Item 12.4.8 2022 Municipal Election Public Consultation Session. From the Finance Committee, item 12.5.1 External Auditor Annual Independence Letter, Engagement Letter and Audit Plan. Item 12.5.3 2023 Property Tax Policy. Item 12.5.5 Securities Held for Subdivision and Development Project Policy. Item 12.5.6 Quarterly Casino Update and Amended Contribution Agreement. Item 12.5.7 Multi-Year Budget Update. And the Appointments Committee Report, item 12.6.1 Appointment of Citizen Members to various boards, and item 12.6.2 Appointment of Liaison Members to the Brantford Heritage Committee.
Yes, Councillor McCurry.
Mayor, thank you. I have an amendment for 12.4.7. I'm sorry, we omitted that. If we could separate that and take it off the list.
So you're asking
First
that
vote.
be taken off the list. I can do that, assuming no one has any objections, no oversight. Okay, so that's not to be included in this vote, Mr. Deputy Clerk. Hopefully no one else has anything else, no other oversights. All right, let's proceed with the vote.
All items not separated for discussion purposes carries unanimously on a recorded vote. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillor Sullivan, Celeste McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel Hunt, Martin Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
All right, so we have no statutory public hearings on the agenda tonight. There are no recognitions of achievement, but we do have one proclamation. And I understand, Councillor Samuel, if you have that motion, would you please confirm that, state your seconder? And if you'd also read not only the motion approving the proclamation, but also the proclamation itself.
Okay. Superior Mesenteric Artery Syndrome Awareness Day, January 28th, 2023, by myself and seconded by my ward mate, Councillor Van Tilburg, that the following proclamation be approved. Superior Mesenteric Artery Syndrome Awareness Day, January 28th, 2023, whereas superior mesenteric artery syndrome is a rare illness that affects 0.013% to 0.03% of the population. And whereas superior mesenteric artery syndrome is a digestive condition that occurs when the duodenum, the first part of the small intestine, is compressed between two arteries, the aorta and the superior mesenteric artery. This compression causes partial or complete blockage of the duodenum. And whereas the superior mesenteric artery syndrome is typically due to the loss of the mesenteric fatty tissue that surrounds the superior mesenteric artery, SMAS symptoms are very based on severity, but can be severely debilitating. Symptoms include, but are not limited to, abdominal pain, fullness, nausea, vomiting, and/or weight loss. And whereas because it is a rare condition, one of the greatest tools in the fight against superior mesenteric artery syndrome is raising awareness. And whereas on January 28th, 2023 marks the annual Superior Mesenteric Artery Syndrome Awareness Day, when SMAS organizations and people affected by this illness will raise awareness for all people living with superior mesenteric artery syndrome. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford does hereby proclaim January 28th, 2023 as World Superior Mesenteric Artery Syndrome Awareness Day in the City of Brantford, and that we encourage all residents of Brantford to increase their understanding and awareness of superior mesenteric artery syndrome.
Whew. Okay. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please take the vote on that.
The proclamation, I'm not going to try to say the title, carries unanimously on recorded vote. Members voting in council in favor are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Celeste McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel Hunt, Martin Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
Okay, we'll now move into presentations/delegations, and we have 4 registered delegations this evening. Prior to hearing the delegations, as following normal standard procedure, I'd like to remind those in the meeting tonight that there are certain rules of decorum that apply when presenting as a delegate to City Council. And they're in our procedural bylaw, and they are as follows: that no person shall display any sign, banner, or placard in the meeting room other than materials that, in the opinion of the chair, are legitimate audiovisual aids necessary in connection with any presentation made to council. All persons present shall use polite and respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language or the making of any gesture that is disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing council shall speak only on the subject in debate and shall not speak on any other subject. No person shall applaud participants in the debate or engage in conversation or behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of the meeting. Also, we have public input and participation, Rule 15.6.2. No delegations shall be permitted to address the following matters: labor relations or employee negotiations, litigation that's either expected to proceed or is currently proceeding or has already been decided by a trier of fact, tenders, RFPs, or any other procurement matter. Any other matter that is properly the subject of an open meeting exception in the Municipal Act. So with the reading of the rules, we'll now move into each of the 4 delegations. And just a reminder, each delegation or delegate has a total of 10 minutes to speak, inclusive of any questions that may be put to them by members of council. So I'm going to call John Steinberg forward, please. And I understand Mr. Steinberg, is he in person or is he virtual?
I'm virtual.
He's virtual. Sorry, we'll just, okay. There you are. So what I need you to do, Mr. Steinberg, is if you could first please state your full name and your address, and then you'll have 10 minutes after that.
My full name is John Steinberg. My address is 120 Cayuga Street, obviously in Brantford. Just calling to speak to the greenhouse proposal. Firstly, sorry, I'm pretty nervous. I'm not much of a public speaker. I'd probably rather go parachuting than speak in public, but in any event, reasons I'm speaking are a few things. Number one, honestly, it'd be really nice to have somewhere in the wintertime to go see something green. There's nothing, to my knowledge, in Brantford that I can go see something green or take my son to learn about plants, nature, or anything to that effect in the wintertime, aside, I guess, from the couple of trees in the mall. But, you know, that's not a particularly natural experience. On occasion, we do drive down to the greenhouse in Hamilton, like the big one at Gage Park, and it's a really nice experience going there, getting into some kind of nature in the wintertime that, like I said, has leaves and flowers instead of just dry branches and pine trees. Number two, I mean, I think I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but I think we can all agree that food bank's quite important. That demand's quite high right now. Figures I looked up are something like about 3 million users in Ontario. Oh, sorry, 500,000 users in Ontario and about 3 million visits a year, which is quite a lot of people. I don't think anyone is going to disagree that come next year, demand is going to be even higher than it is now. And this year is 22% higher than it was last year. So, I mean, the greenhouse would assist the community gardens in production of food, would probably get some sprouts going to allow for an earlier planting, which allow for earlier harvests, and would allow for some amount of, say, lettuce, kale, other hardy winter plants to be grown in the winter to be given to the food banks. And then beyond that, I mean, even without food bank users, like fresh fruits and vegetables are important, and they're not easy to acquire anymore. Like they're expensive. Like lettuce costs almost as much per pound as beef right now. Broccoli, same thing. Or sorry, not broccoli, cauliflower in the wintertime, same thing. If we could have some source in the winter of free fruits and vegetables, that would, I think, be very helpful for a lot of people. Yeah, those are the main 2 points as far as that location go. Sorry, as far as the merits of the greenhouse itself. And I don't think the merits of the greenhouse itself are being debated. I think it's more so the location. So the sort of main 2 points I've heard at the last meeting regarding that are, number one, a referral to, sorry for my language a little bit incorrect, but the Greenwich Brownfield. I don't know the actual official property name. And the question and or concern I have about that is it's located adjacent to a large scrap metal recycler and scrap metal yard, which would likely contain large amounts of heavy metal. Rainfall that would flow there would likely seep over into the Greenwich location and likely contaminate the soil with heavy metals. Is it safe to consume food grown in that soil? Secondly, is it plausible to grow food in that soil? I know, like, soil with high copper content makes it difficult to grow plants. Like copper is dangerous to plants as it is to people in large quantities, let alone lead and other runoffs that could occur from that place, or even, you know, just straight up toxic elements. I don't know exactly what's in that site. Secondly, as far as location, to my knowledge, the Earl Haig Community Garden is the largest one in Brantford. It would make sense to have the greenhouse as close as possible to the planting location, which on site is pretty much as close as you can get. Versus, like I said, up in the Greenwich area, which is much further. And then the other point spoken to was the waterfront master plan, which was drafted in 2010, back when MySpace was popular. And I mean, quite a bit has changed in society since then. Like the prime interest rate was between 2.5 and 3% in 2010. Now it's 6.45. My house, which I bought in 2013, was $180,000. Now a condo averages about like $350,000 in Brantford. So what merits building condos in that area may have had in terms of providing affordable housing towards the citizens have certainly changed a lot, given that a $350,000 condo at a 6.5 interest rate is a very high bar to meet for most people, and doesn't see provide housing towards citizens anymore, versus say like $100,000 condo at 3% when the legislation was, or when the plan was drafted. Secondly, when the plan was drafted, development fees or permit fees or whatever the proper name of that term is, were collected routinely. Oh, sorry, Jack, I'm talking. I'll be a minute, okay? Okay, give me 5 minutes. Okay, buddy? Sorry about that. Were commonly collected and made up a sizable portion of likely the city's income, and if not the city's income, it did offset the cost of providing services and infrastructure to those buildings. Now with Ford's new legislation, it greatly hinders the ability to collect those fees, which decreases the merits in terms of revenue that the city would collect for establishing condos in that area. And if my understanding is wrong, forgive me, but shifts the burden of payment for that infrastructure from the developer through fees to taxpayers, making development of condos a net loss for the city, or certainly a net loss to the taxpayers in the area that would have to foot the bill for the discount provided them. I know that's not City Council's fault, that's the Ontario government, but those three things are like drastic and very sizable changes in demographics that might say very much change the merits of the plan or the merits of that land that had been approved 13 years ago. Those are my primary points. Lastly, I mean, the plan goes into great detail about the value of parkland, the value of open space, the value of nature. I mean, our past experiences, I'm sure everybody's had an earful about the whole Airedale thing. People in this area like nature, they like green space. That's why I moved here. That's why likely why the people in that new condo development going up are moving here, is because there's 2 parks in the area. There's a river like a stone's throw from the condos, and there's a garden right there with fresh tomatoes, fresh basil. I know I walk over there. I enjoy getting fresh basil, taking my kid out there to garden and be in nature. I imagine the new residents come there too. And if we bulldoze all that over or whatnot, it's not gonna help. They're gonna come here, and the things that people moved here for aren't gonna be here. It's gonna just be a bunch of concrete, and we're gonna be in Oshawa. And I mean, I don't think anyone's coming to wanting to live in Oshawa. That's my piece. That's all I have.
Okay, we have a couple of questions for you, Mr. Steinberg. We've got about 2.5 minutes, and starting with Councillor Samuel.
Hi, John. First, I just want to say I know what it takes to be on that side of the table and presenting. So congratulations on that. The one question I have for you is, what is having the community garden at Earl Haig meant to your family?
Like I said, it's a place I can take Jack so he can be out in nature. He can learn about nature. It's a place I can take my dog Clark to go around. He enjoys picking what we call pizza leaves, which are basil leaves. He's expressed interest this summer of going over and watering with me. It's a chance for me and him to bond together. And like I said, be in nature in a relatively safe place, because it's right next to Earl Haig Park. There's people around. It's not like the river where I have to worry about vagrants, so I can't really enjoy that space much anymore. And I mean, we have Tatula Park and we have Parsons Park, but they're more a grass park or a playground park. They're not so much, well, like a plant park. I mean, I suppose Parsons Park is going that way, but yeah, that's sort of it.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
Hey, John, I heard someone in the background there. My question to you was, besides being next to the community garden, does your family go to the Earl Haig splash pad or water park? Yeah.
Yeah, we very much like the water park. I just was under the impression that it wasn't allowed to speak to the water park. The water park's an even greater concern of ours than the garden. We go there every summer. We buy like a season's pass. That's where my sons learn how to swim. Swimming's very important to our family. We go there pretty much daily after in the summer. The whole season's open. I'd love to see it open in June and September. I think it's warm enough to support it if we can find staffing. And like, quite frankly, there's only 3 pools in the city. 2 of them have a very restrictive schedule, having free swims for, I think, a total of 2-3 hours a week, which are about an hour and a half bus ride for me to get to the Wayne Gretzky Center. And it's quite packed and enclosed, which is a COVID concern for us. I mean, we still take it relatively seriously here. He still wears his mask in school. And I mean, given the state of the hospitals, I think it's a valid concern. Whereas Earl Haig's outdoors and it's a 10-minute walk from the house.
So you take
Great, thank you very much,
advantage of
Mr.
both
Steinberg.
properties, or both
Sorry,
activities.
Councillor Van
Thank
Tilburg,
you.
we've hit the 10 minutes. I want to thank you very much, Mr. Steinberg. I thought you did very well and didn't show any nervousness whatsoever. So thank you very much. And we'll be dealing with this early on in the meeting. Okay, so we'll now move on to the second delegation, which is Wendy Carter in respect to the same matter. Yeah, Ms. Carter, if you please come up, and can I go to either side? Just make sure you push the button and the red light comes on. So you can go there. Stand or sit as you wish. Yeah, just push the button. When you see the red light come on, it means it's ready.
Right?
There you go. So I just need you to state your full name and address, and
Yes.
then you have 10 minutes.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, councillors, staff, and members of the audience. My name is Wendy Carter, and I live here in Brantford. I love Eagle Place and Earl Haig Park on the riverside, previously known under other names such as Lions Park and Waterfront Park, but I'll get back to you on that. It has a great big community garden that feeds our people, many of whom are in dire need. Since its existence, over 40,000 pounds of food have gone to the food bank, as well as feeding others who plant, weed, and tend. Can everybody hear me? Good. Soon there will be a greenhouse to grow seedlings to plant in the gardens. What an opportunity to invite people in classes there to learn. A bit about myself. I learned to swim at the old Olympic-sized pool, and I learned to skate at the double rinks there when I'd warm myself while having hot chocolate in the building. They had skate sharpening too. The birthday parties make a fun childhood memory and exciting teenage memories. Thankfully, I think that pool still gives swimming lessons, though I'm not sure with COVID and everything. I'm not much connected to that pool now. I do know that it provides fun and support. At that time, when I was in my teenage years, the high schools had their Big Four football games there, and we got a half a day off to attend. Right, John? I'd sit in the bleachers and cheer, but I didn't know what was going on in football. Well, I call that lucky. Picnics at the tables, sitting in the shade of the trees, enjoying nature. What could be better? So I've lived most of my life in Eagle Place, but I don't reside there now. So I'm not a NIMBY. Eagle Place will always be in my heart. I am a retired teacher. I took my classes to the park, formerly known as Waterfront Park. To some, it was that June trip, the highlight of the year, and to swim that they may not have got to do because of struggling financial situations. Earl Hague is cost prohibitive to many in our city because of the admission fee and the added costs if you choose to purchase tents, lockers, etc. I took family, friends, and little sisters of the Big and Little Sister organization there, and we had the times of our lives. Those events became tradition to some annually. Let's help this park grow by adding those traditions for future residents too. Yes, we could have more added to the park as well as scheduled events. Perhaps the city could try and tie in with the convention center just across the road and the owners of the condos in the old railway station. I look forward to see if they use the Iron Horse facade. It's part of our city's history too. This park is also visited by tourists who can afford it. Future residents and the city's residents would rather see this park with gardens and a greenhouse than plastic tarps and concrete structures on the riverside. Future condo residents will love that park across the street, especially if they downsize to move there. That was what they saw, and some will love to get their fingers in the soil too. It will become a social as well as community giving place and feeling. I doubt that a greenhouse and green space in their views will not bother them, whereas concrete structures may. That area is open to nature and should stay that way. I know that housing is a problem here, but what happened to the plan of building on the infill? I love the growth and revitalization of the downtown. I've been a YMC member for decades, and I see the river from one of their new studios. Butterfly Rangers. I'm a butterfly ranger at heart and have native perennial gardens to promote pollinators and breeding monarchs. I'm sure that the city would provide these options, which I believe will be done in the greenhouse area and the outside gardens as well. The Butterfly Rangers provided native plants in the community gardens, and the Parks Department have worked cooperatively with them. Indeed, teachable moments. Memories of having the thrill of a butterfly land on you is something you can't replace. So let's fix up the lazy river, the batter's cage, mini putt, and the park for the sake of Brantford on the Grand. We also need a passive area in the park since there are already areas for sports. And I'm referring to the master aging plan. You could have a place for seniors, shade, benches, and tables. You need to include options for the disabled, such as custom tables that the city owns. We need low-cost and free attractions in our parks rather than empty parks and more splash pads. I walk those trails, cross the bridges, look at the gorgeous gardens, go through that tunnel to Lorne Park in all seasons. I see beauty in nature all around me that this city can be proud of. I used to walk my dog, and sometimes I sit on the huge landscaping boulders there near the bridges and watch people, birds, bicyclists, and the river flow. I watch the skateboarders and the movie sets there and around town. I'm a big fan of Murdoch Mysteries and The Handmaid's Tale. I take pride in spotting Us when it's aired. I even record those episodes. We all know that cities need to increase the tree canopy, as well as this one. From the city's website, less than 15 years ago, before the growth of the West Brant burbs, we know the tree canopy was less than 15%. And it's decreasing constantly. We know the science of how important trees are. We need them as the lungs of the earth, for shade to protect us from the sun's rays and cool the earth. Then there are the emotional feelings about trees, but that's another story. So yes, call me a tree hugger. I'll wear that badge with pride as I save the Greenbelt, as well as save the Greenbelt. Yeah, okay. I know this land isn't deemed Greenbelt area, but it is precious outdoor green space. I fear that Bill 23 will decimate park areas everywhere.
Ms. Carter, about 15 more seconds, please.
Oh. To me, it was just going like a turtle.
I hate to cut you off, but we actually gone beyond a little bit 10 minutes.
So much thanks to Mandy and her volunteers, and also thanks to Cheryl A. for the inception. Now I'll get back to you on that important fact. The swimming pool park was opened in 1923, so it's 100 years old this year. How awesome is that? Let's do up this greenhouse, gardens, and Earl Haig Park right and celebrate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter.
Thank you.
So we'll now move on to the third delegation. And this, I believe, is three individuals: Andrea Coombs, Caitlin Schneider, and Taylor Edwards, representing the Equal Grounds Community Gardens Committee. And if you please come forward, you can, each of you can take one of those microphones. So if you push the buttons, you can see the red light come on. And then just each of you state your full name and address and then proceed with the delegation.
Taylor is not going to be joining us for the presentation. She registered on our behalf, so she put her name down as a contact, but it'll just be Caitlin and I.
Okay. So you're Andrea then?
I am Andrea, yes. I am Andrea Coombs. I live on Barrett Ave, which is in the Johnson Park vicinity in Brantford.
I am Caitlin Schneider and I live out on War Road in Brant County. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we're not here just to discuss a greenhouse. We're here to discuss what a greenhouse can bring back to Brantford. We have, over the last couple of years, I've been a part of Equal Grounds Community Gardens. I started in 2018 and I am currently the interim president for this organization. Seeing this greenhouse come to life has been a dream of ours since the start of Eco Grounds. We want this greenhouse to be able to bring all walks of life together, which already happens at Earl Haig. We want to be able to create a safe space, a hub where it can be seen as somewhere that people can come and be a part of a community that they might not have been a part of without this space. It is going to bring people together from all walks of life. Next slide, please. Thank you. Over the last couple of years here at Eco Grounds Community Gardens, we have been able to provide countless numbers of pounds of food to our communities. That's what we've been able to do for the food banks, and then countless numbers of food that people come and pick themselves that we are unable to figure out how much that is. We have over 200 volunteers within the city and the county. We had to pivot like most people in 2020 and create a host garden program where we were allowed to help people create gardens in their own homes, and they were able to take part in education sessions on Zoom, which this greenhouse is going to hopefully offer in-person education sessions at Earl Haig. We've also been able to offer help high school students and many other people complete their volunteer hours, which is something that we hope to continue with the greenhouse. Next slide.
Okay, and as I mentioned before, I'm Andrea Coombs, and I've been with the Community Garden Organization actually since 2009 when we had a piece of land out at Brantwood Farms. So we were using that for our garden space, which was fantastic, but very much off the beaten path. So I've been involved. I'm currently the treasurer for the board and I've been on the board and treasurer since we incorporated in 2018. I'm also a champion for the Johnson Park Garden. I am also the committee chair for the Greenhouse and Learning Committee. And my full-time job is actually with Enbridge Gas, and we do a lot of volunteer work with the community gardens and elsewhere because we believe in doing volunteer work within the community. So that's just a little bit about me. I have two kids as well, and they have grown up at the gardens. So my kids are almost 16 and 18 now, and they were very, very little when they started off at the gardens. So I just want to talk about the funding for the greenhouse. So although the slide says we received approval this year, obviously we worked, for probably a year and a half prior to that to actually get the grant ready to be submitted. So really we started in late 2020 with some visioning sessions, and from there we made the application in late 2021. So things have changed since then. Costs are not what they were at the end of 2021, that's for sure. The grant was approved at a high level to basically rebuild and recover from impacts of COVID-19 by purchasing equipment and hiring staff to support growth and production of community gardens to reduce food insecurity in marginalized communities. And that was actually in our grant application. Next slide, please. So this speaks to the deliverables of the grant. So we talk about the fact that there's a greenhouse there. So it's going to be made out of double-walled polycarbonate, which means it's, not so soft that you can cut into it, but it's not a glass structure either. And more generally, we're building a greenhouse to not only extend our growing season, that will be part of it, it will help us do that, but also to provide an urban garden hub, which we've started with the existing community garden at Earl Haig. So it's about having a place where people can come together and learn, develop gardening skills, which we know that are transferable to people's own personal lives, and especially in this time of food insecurity. Next slide, please. So in terms of the timelines, again, it was approved in April. We did actually ask for an extension to start the project in August because we knew that we were getting ready to embark on our very, very busy garden season, which, we're planning all year round, but obviously we get really busy in May. So we deferred the start of the project to August. And the grant money, some of the grant money has already been spent. This slide actually refers to that. So, we've committed to building the garden at the Earl Haig site. We've already done some site plans. So, again, this has been an ongoing project. We did ask for an extension to basically add an additional 2 months onto our grant timeline because we knew that we were running up against some challenges in terms of timing to get the greenhouse built. We've had lots of volunteer hours. When I say lots, that's probably more like hundreds or thousands of volunteer hours actually going into this project to date for planning, meetings, documenting, networking, everything else that goes into a project of this scope. Next slide, please.
So why Earl Haig? It's why we're here. It's why everyone else is here also. As you can see, it has a lot more meaning than just an open space of land. It brings hope to people in the community. It brings us a sense of pride when you drive by and you see it. It allows people to walk in and have that space for them to meet different community members that they might not have been able to meet before, as I said. It brings all walks of life together, and there's no barriers when you're in a space like that because you're just there for the same purpose, to take part in gardening and to learn and to help the community grow. We've been established there, and people know that we are there and that they are able to come and have that safe space. Next slide, please.
This is not a very exciting slide, but basically it just shows the site plan. So it shows the existing garden beds. It's kind of hard for anybody in the audience, I'm sure, to see because it is quite small up there. It also shows that the proposed greenhouse site in the middle. This was drafted up for us by city staff after we went on a site visit to look at what was there, where was the best place to put the greenhouse. So it's just a quick snapshot of kind of the layout of the actual Earl Haig garden site. Next slide, please. So we spoke about all the work that's gone into this. We've got lots of partners who are involved. Obviously OTF, we mentioned already, for the funding that they've provided and allowing us to do this grant financially. We also already mentioned city staff. They've been a huge support through this entire process. They've been great to work with. John Suderman, who's also our builder, but he's been so much more than that. He's very supportive of this. He's a resident of Eagle Place. He's giving us a lot of his time and effort for no charge, a lot of out-of-pocket stuff he's already done for us. And we've also obviously got Cahoon Engineering, who are doing a lot of work for us, basically for a very reduced cost, because again, they believe in the project. So it's been great to have these partners help us because we would not have been able to get to the point we're at without them. Next slide, please. So the next two slides just show some pictures of different greenhouses that are around and just talk to the vision of what we have in mind.
Again, like, it's not just a greenhouse. We want to be able to create a space where it looks like this. It's not just going to be a structure. It's going to have gardens. It's going to have benches. It's going to be able to be that space where people can come and hang out. They can play soccer games with their families. They can have picnics. They can come and have that whole community aspect here and utilize the whole space to be able to bring that community and social aspect back especially after the last couple of years. Next slide, please.
Just to clarify, there won't be soccer in the greenhouse.
No, sorry. Yes, there will not be. Be the rest of the property. Next slide, please. We also want to be able to offer programming and educate people on how to grow their own food, on how to preserve, compost, all of those things that I think are tangible tools to help with food security and bring them that sense of accomplishment also.
Okay, so we've gone a little bit beyond 10 minutes. Can you try and wrap it in about 15, 20 seconds?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, do you want to finish that up?
Yeah. So if you can just go to the next slide, please. these are just similar concepts. We don't need to spend any time on it. So just to wrap up, really, this is not just about building a greenhouse. It's about building community. And we think we can do that at Oral Hag because that is a site that's already established. People know it. People like coming there. And it's a great site to bring people together. Thank you for your time.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Andrea, and thank you very much, Caitlin. A very well organized and presented presentation. So we have one further delegate who's coming to us virtually. Cheryl Ann Tosky, who would like to speak to the same item. So I believe we have her in the virtual waiting room. You there? So Ms. Antoski, if you'd please state your full name and your address, and then you'll have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Cheryl Antoski, recently of Brantwood Park Road in Brantford, now Marshalltown, Nova Scotia. Good evening, Mayor Davis, members of council, members of staff, and to those supporting in the gallery. I'm here to speak this evening to the item 12.1.9, which is about waiving planning fees for a greenhouse and learning center for Equal Ground Community Gardens. But this conversation also became about potentially moving the greenhouse to from the pre-approved location for this wonderful community project. As a co-founder of Equal Ground Community Gardens back in 2009, I'm still very involved in the project because I know that it's good for the community and its residents. And although I've recently moved away for semi-retirement, a big part of my heart and soul remain in Brantford. Next slide, please. In response to some of the questions about the project, the greenhouse is small. It's 24 by 30 feet. It's double-walled polycarbonate and can fit nicely, unobtrusively, and even artistically into an active community garden. But this project is not just a greenhouse. It's about building community, as you've heard, meeting neighbors and like-minded people, addressing food security, championing volunteerism, and providing a lovely place for residents and visitors to visit. Workshops, programming, and volunteering are all anticipated activities here. The greenhouse is not anticipated to grow all year round in its first phase, but further phases planned for passive solar heating along with other alternative sources of energy, which can eventually provide year-round growing. However, right from the beginning, the greenhouse will extend this growing season. We can easily start growing in March and grow greens such as lettuce right through December and longer depending on the temperatures. Next slide, please. I've got a slide out of order, my apologies. So this is our ask. We think that what we are asking for, that Equal Ground Community Gardens provides far more value than the ask here. Waiving the planning fees will help us through unanticipated challenges of large cost increases that appeared between the time of filing for the grant application and being approved and receiving the grant. Next slide, please. This is the slide I thought was coming next. So this was the speaking of lettuce. Nope, sorry, go back to the other one. Because I had previously mentioned lettuce, growing them longer in the season. And speaking of lettuce, this is one of the sections at Earl Hag. In 2022, what do you think the value of this would have been? We all know the cost of lettuce. Thank you, next slide. All right, although some members of council seem surprised by this project, it's not new. The project's been in the works for a few years now, but very active since the grant was received earlier this year. In fact, council received an update June of this year that outlined this very project, and council accepted and received it at that time. I did notice that it was included in the report in the agenda. Sorry. Next slide, please. Earl Hag is our biggest site with great potential to grow more food and make more community connections. Over the years, other sites have been investigated, and Earl Hag was clearly the best option. The biggest reasons are its accessibility, its visibility, access to water. It has a large shed for us to use for supplies, and there's long sun exposure. I do see that the memo suggests River Green Park. We did have a site there that was not successful. The main reasons for its lack of success were lack of visibility, there was no water access, we were limited to 3 beds, and we had difficulty getting volunteers for that site. There also were a fair number of mature trees. The shed placed there by Parks and Rec was ruined by fire, and that was the last straw for that site. Conklin Park was also a consideration. However, that location is very close to houses, and neighborhood consultation would be desired if not required. Lack of parking, which might interfere with residential on-street parking, no water access, and large mature trees are some of the items that did not make this a top location. The size of this location would also have to be revisited to see if it could accommodate the greenhouse and all the growing beds. Next slide, please. The waterfront master plan was raised during debate on December 6th. I'm pleased to say that the EcoGround project meets and complies with the pillars laid out in this plan. However, it is a plan from 2010, and many things have changed, including many of the residents and businesses. Perhaps it's time to revisit this plan and, through community consultation, discover what is desired by the residents and businesses that surround the area now. I'm sure there'll be many pieces of the plan that will stay the same, but there might be new ideas brought forward that align with what people want now. I believe that the suggestion to review the plan was so that people would see that it is listed, that it lists the possibility for development on this site. If it is determined by the constituency and by council that development should take place on this site, then I would also point out that the plan recommends not taking cash in lieu for park allocation, but to make sure that parkland is included in the development. So instead of talking about this or that, why wouldn't we talk about this and that? Rather than displacing a project that the community benefits from and has embraced, why not invest in it? The City of Brantford and developers could consider investing in this project to incorporate it into the park space required by new development and let all the residents enjoy and benefit from it. Next slide, please. This is not just a greenhouse, and it's not an ugly structure that people wouldn't want to look at as was suggested. A community garden can be beautiful. It can look like this. Next slide, please. Or this. Next slide, please. In conclusion, we're asking the city to please continue their partnership with EcoGround Gardens by waiving these fees and by finding ways to continue investing and supporting in something that has proven to be beneficial and has been embraced by the community. Thank you.
Questions for you, Ms. Antosby? So we have Councillor Sandwell.
I just have a couple of questions for you. This is a few months into your grant, so why are you here now? Isn't it a little bit late in the process? I'll let you answer that before I ask my other question.
Okay, thank you. There's a few factors in that, and which caused a bit of a domino effect. And I guess the starting answer to that is the chicken and egg conundrum. So although EcoGround has been working on this for quite some time, and we have had some help with staff, when it was just a vision, there wasn't an actual project to work with yet. There wasn't a grant, there was nothing to move forward. So we were limited to how much work could be done and how much detail could be received. When we got the grant, the clock starts ticking, and now we start getting all of the information. So although in the beginning there was some general conversation about, well, we think we're going to have to do this, and we'll need to have a site plan, and we'll need to do this, there were no details. There were no details at that point about costs or really what we were going to have to do, because staff didn't have details from us yet. So then we get the grant, the ball starts rolling. By the time we got the grant, there were some significant increases in costs, both for the greenhouse itself. We ended up changing builders. The original greenhouse that we were going to buy, we discovered that the drawings that come with it were not acceptable by the city. We ended up changing builders, and we're very grateful to find a greenhouse builder that grew up in Eagle Place, and family still lives there. And as was mentioned earlier, he's embraced the project and is giving his time. He's paying his employees, he's giving his time to invest. He submitted the drawings that come with the greenhouses that he built from a manufacturer, and it doesn't fit our process. We had to go out and get stamped engineered drawings, which is a substantial cost and time. So to use the engineer that did those drawings would have cost us over $3,000 and added weeks and weeks and weeks to the process. Cahoon Engineering, Mr. Cahoon has agreed to help us out at a fraction of the cost and of time, and they're working on this and helping us through the process. So those are some of the things that we still do have some unknowns. When the application plan is submitted, GRCA will be weighing in on this and deciding whether or not a permit is needed. So although we did have funds to cover some of, or, Equal Ground does have some funds to cover some of these things out of their own coffers, not just the grant, things came in much higher than originally anticipated, both because of everything increasing, but also because of not being able to have the details at the beginning and then having to crunch everything into a very short time frame. So we're looking for reductions anywhere we can, because any place that we can't get it is going to take away from programming, and if we can't do programming there, that is going to be a huge detriment to the success of the project.
All right, we've gone quite a bit past 10 minutes, so I wanted to thank you very much, Cheryl, for coming in virtually and adding to the debate and bringing your perspective all the way from the East Coast. And hope everything is going well for you there. So with that completes the delegations. So we'll now move to the clerk's report and communications. And I believe Councillor Carpenter, you have the motion to receive the clerk's report on communications for December 2022.
Yes, I do. That the clerk's report, moved by myself, seconded by my ward mate, Councillor Linda Hunt, that the clerk's report on communication for December 2022 be received.
Any discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please take the vote.
The clerk's report on communication carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Celeste McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samwell, Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Sicoli, and Mayor Davis.
Great. We'll now move on to minutes. I believe Councillor Martin, you have the motion to adopt the minutes. Would you please confirm that, state your seconder, and read the motion?
Thank you. I move, seconded by Councillor McCurry, that the following minutes be adopted. 11.1 City Council, July 26, 11.2 City Council, September 20th, 11.3 City Council, October 4th, 11.4 City Council, November 15th, 11.5 City Council, November 29th, 11.6 Special City Council, October 4th, 11.7 Special City Council, November 22nd, 11.8 Special City Council, November 29, 11.9 Special City Council, Private and Confidential, October 4th, 11.10 Special City Council, Private and Confidential, November 29th, and the following minutes be received. 11.11 John Noble Home Committee of Management, September 14th, 11.2 John Noble Home Committee of Management, November 9th, 11.13 John Noble Home Committee of Management, Private and Confidential, September 14th, and 11.4 John Noble Home Committee of Management, Private and Confidential, November 9th.
Anybody, any errors and omissions on the regular special council minutes? Or in respect to the John Noble Home, any questions in respect to those minutes? Seeing none, Mr. Deputy Clerk, please take the vote.
Item 11, minutes carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of council voting in favor are as follows. Councillors Sullivan, Sless, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel, Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Sicoli, and Mayor Davis.
So we'll move on to the committee reports. I believe Councillor Hunt, you have the motion, place all separated items on the floor, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by my ward mate, Councillor Carpenter, that all items in the committee reports, items 12.1 to 12.6, separated for discussion purposes, be approved.
All right, so we'll move on to, as is our practice, unless anybody objects, we'll first dispose of the matters that where we had delegations. We only had one item that had delegations, and that's 12.1.9, and that's the future site application for 101 Market Street South. So any discussion? Councillor Samuel.
Thank you. First, I want to thank all of the community members in the gallery tonight. It certainly shows how much the Earl Haig Community Garden and Greenhouse Project means to you. There's almost not an empty chair in this building tonight. And I also want to thank the delegates that spoke with so much passion for this project. As we've heard tonight, the Greenhouse Project going into Earl Haig Community Garden will have a very positive effect on our community. It provides opportunities to build community, a sense of belonging, provides education, and reduces food insecurity. This location was chosen by working very closely with city staff, and it was picked because it was found to be the best choice and was accepted through the update report in June. This is the largest, most accessible garden that we have. And since 2009, this group has donated 44,500 pounds of food to support families accessing the food bank. If we as the city were doing the work that the Equal Grounds Community Gardens volunteer group has been doing in our community, it would cost us tens of thousands of dollars to provide the food, the programming, and the community development work. To try and move this project now, it would be potentially catastrophic and could cause it to completely fail. We're not talking about just moving a greenhouse. I've seen firsthand how this community garden has been making an impact in our community. There really isn't a way to put into words the difference that this garden has made, but I will share this little bit from a letter that we've received. Since our child was born, we have taken him to the community garden to plant, to weed, to water, to harvest, and to try new foods. His favorite is picking pizza leaves, aka basil. He loves to try new herbs, vegetables, and fruits that grow in the garden. This exploration and education wouldn't have been possible without this garden. That's from Liz, the president of the Eagle Place Community Association. At one of the most recent meetings, we talked about helping make things easier for those who volunteer in our city to make it better. This is a great place to put our money where our mouth is. It sounds like other partners have stepped forward to help this group overcome unforeseen challenges and to bring this project for our community to fruition. Let's not be the barrier or the hurdle. Let's be part of the solution. This can be an easy win for everyone. And I look forward to us waiving the fees and making this dream a reality for the community. Thank you.
All right, I don't see any other speakers. I'm going to call the vote. Oh, sorry, Councillor Carpenter, didn't see your hand there. Go ahead, Councillor Carpenter.
Oh, yeah. I know that for the viewing public, it's the councillors that zoom in usually speak last. The name of the resolution says future site plan application for 101 Market Street South. And I take exception to that because that's not what this was. This was actually a resolution to waive the 50% of the fees of the Planning Department Development Site Plan fees from $3,255, which represented 50% of this minor application fee. So this was originally a resolution to waive the fees for a site plan for this property for a greenhouse. And then it got turned into something completely different about whether it should be here, about the whole process of community gardens was brought into question. And I find that concerning to me. We should have stuck with it should have been ruled out of order in the first place, but it wasn't. I still think it was out of order, but it's on before us now. So to the clerk, what is on the floor for us to vote on tonight so we can be clear? Are we voting on now therefore it be resolved the city council waive the respective combined planning department fee for site plan control totaling $3,255, which represents 50% of the minor site plan fee in accordance with the fee schedule and the planning department procedural manual, and the building permit fee for lands located at 101 Mark Street. Is that what's before us?
Through the chair to the councilor's question, I've shared what the motion is that council's voting on tonight, and it's with regard to the referral with the direction to staff.
So if council votes yes for this tonight, then the fees are waived.
If council votes yes for this tonight, this item gets referred to
where?
staff.
Well, it's already been referred to staff. Staff have already provided us with the information. So the referral.
Through the chair, this item hasn't actually been referred. It hasn't been ratified by council to be referred yet. So this is where it's being referred tonight. If council votes yes, they're referring this item. Staff did their best to provide council with the information that was listed in the referral beforehand.
So if council votes no, so what's on the floor is the referral.
Correct.
So if council votes no on this, then the issue comes before us is on the table then?
Correct.
So I want to be clear. So
Would have through chair, just to clarify, it would have to be put back on the floor.
Yeah, so Councillor Carpenter, as the chair, I would rule on that. And you're quite right. If a yes vote would be saying yes to the referral with the matter coming back to some later date. If the referral is voted down, then I would accept that someone can move and second and put on the floor the original resolution.
okay, thank you. That's the clarification that I was looking for. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'd encourage my council colleagues to vote no on the referral. Let's move forward and support this community group doing the great work they've been doing in the community. And we should never got here in the first place. So let's correct this by voting no on this referral. I will be voting no, and I encourage my council colleagues to do the same. Thank you very much.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
I have an amendment. And because what I think this is housekeeping. And we did receive all the information from staff regarding in the referral. I think we've got a significant amount of information here. So what I would like to do to make it clear for people, and we can move on with the garden project, is that since we have the information at hand already, if we could strike the referral from the resolution. So we strike the referral, and then that's.
I'm going to rule.
It's similar to the same thing that was mentioned, but.
I'm going to rule it out of order. I think the proper procedure, since what we have coming to us from committee of the whole is the referral, is we vote on the referral as it's come to us from the committee. And if a majority votes no, then of course it's defeated. And then someone can put the original resolution on the floor and we can then vote on that. Councillor Hunt.
So being a newbie, first of all, I agree with my ward mate that this original resolution moved by Councillor Samwell and seconded by Councillor Van Tilburg was simply a resolution to waive $3,255 in site plan application fees. I agree with Councillor Carpenter that we somehow went way off the rails and are looking at a report that council already referred to staff, and we do have the report. So one question that I do have through the mayor to the CAO is it not safe to assume that the work done by staff in order to meet the requirements of this referral are in fact adding to the $3,255 that we are being asked to waive. So we've already, my point being is we've had staff invest time in preparing the report for the referral.
I think the question is, has there been staff time expended on the report that we've received so far?
Yes, to you, Mr. Mayor, to the counselor, the short answer is yes. Staff had spent time on preparing this response and the referral and the memo that was sent back to council over the last week and a half. So there has been extra staff time on this, and there will be extra staff time if it's referred to a future committee meeting.
Okay, so that being said, I'm going to again agree with my ward mate that we need to vote down the referral because the original resolution was simply to waive $3,255. So as the CAO has just indicated, we've already expended additional staff time to generate the report for the referral, and we're going to spend even more staff time on a referral if it's not voted down.
Okay. Not seeing any other speakers. Oh, sorry, Councillor Slass.
Just for clarity, Mr. Mayor, it's been insinuated that if you're not supporting this going in this location, that somehow you're opposed to community gardens, which from my perspective is not the case. At least that's not the case for myself. So I just want to clear the air on that a vote to not necessarily put it here, but to get further information as to where it possibly could be is not a voting down the good work that these folks are doing, because they are doing good work and it's valuable work. And I certainly endorse and encourage them to continue to do that. That's not what this is about, in my opinion. This is about finding a proper location. So it's nothing to do with the good work that's being done, because it is good work. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you very much. Councillor Celeste is absolutely correct. We value what's been done. Councillor Antosky has been the lead on this project for years and years and years. And it's her legacy as well. And it was so good to hear from her tonight, even though she's so far away. What we want to ensure is that the good work that the committee and the volunteers have done lands on a permanent site, a forever home. There are pressures on the site that we're on now that probably will have us back at some point in time in this committee room dealing with the sale of that land and the angst that would result from that, because it will eventually find its highest use. So I think rather than, hear what we've heard about positioning going forward from tonight, if this is referred to staff, we will come back as quickly as we can with an alternate location, which is probably going to be a block down the street, which will be a forever home, which the corporation of the city of Brantford can certainly.
Sorry, ma'am, if you continue to speak. Sorry, ma'am, we do not accept people speaking out from the audience. I'm sorry. We follow parliamentary procedure. If you repeat it, I'll have to ask you to leave the room. So please honor our rules. Thank you.
Mayor, I'm quite happy to answer that if the lady'd like to stand up and introduce herself.
No, you know the procedure. We do not interact with the audience. That's not following parliamentary procedure. Would you please stick with the debate on the matter that's an issue?
Actually, you're welcome to come to my backyard and get some seedlings in the springtime, because I am a gardener and I do respect what you people do. Don't shake your head at me. Yeah. So, we're not the enemy here. We're trying to find you a place where this can live forever, okay? Where your greenhouse can go, where the corporation of the city of Brantford can be a partner for you, perhaps a better partner than we've been to date. So, if it gets referred tonight, that's where it lands, and we'll be seeing you back here as quick as we can get a report that would come to this council to look after you properly, okay?
Yes, Councillor Van Tilburg, you've already spoken once. So
I
better be
had
an
an
amendment.
amendment. That was an amendment that I brought that you voted down. So now I wish my.
I didn't vote it down. I said it was out of order.
Out of order. So now I wish to have my speaking time. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
No, you've already had your speaking time.
asking for an amendment is not speaking time.
You had your one speaking opportunity.
I challenge the chair and I'll have my speaking time.
All right. Well, I'm ruling that you had your speaking time. Let me
I
just,
challenge the chair.
Counselor Van Tilburg, you
Mayor,
have,
the challenge goes immediately to the vote.
I have to rule on it. So my ruling is that you have your one chance to speak at council. You've done that. And so I assume you want to challenge. Now you need a seconder to challenge it.
Happy to second it.
Okay, well, we see we have Counselor Samwell, so there's no debate and I can't vote on it, if I understand correctly. Is that correct? I can still vote, okay. So just explain the procedure to us, please.
Through the chair, the votes that will be cast to the councillors' iPads will be that the decision of the chair be sustained. So if members of council agree with the decision of the chair, vote yes. If they disagree, vote no. A tie vote also sustains the decision of the chair. So I'll go ahead and cast that vote. The decision of the chair has been sustained. Members of the council voting in favor as follows: Councillors Sless, McCreary, Marn, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis. Members opposed: Councillors Sullivan, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samwell, and Hunt.
Seeing no further speakers, I'll put the matter to a vote.
The referral of item 12.1.9 carries on a recorded vote of 6-5. Members of council voting in favor as follows: Councillors Sless, McCreary, Marn, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis. Members opposed: Councillors Sullivan, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samwell, and Hunt.
All right. So let's move on to the next item that was separated for discussion purposes. Councillor Martin, that was item 12.3.5 zoning bylaw amendment for 461, 467 West Street. You've got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I separated this so that I could vote against it. This is a 7-story building.
Tell you, why don't we just take a 2-minute adjournment so that there are people leaving the room at this point. So stand down for about 3 minutes. Okay, let's move on. We've got item 12.3.5. Councillor Martin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a project that's actually in Ward 4, but it's right on West Street, which is a boundary between Ward 4 and Ward 3. And when you cross West Street, it's all single-family homes, mostly 1-story, some 2-story. So to have a 7-story building right across the street is going to be quite daunting for the people who live on West Street and even some of the ones on Martin. So for that reason, I'll be voting against this.
Not seeing any other discussion. So I'll put this matter to the vote. This is again 461, 467 West Street, coming from our planning committee.
Item 12.3.5 carries and recorded vote of 8-2. Members of council voting in favor as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Sless, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samwell, Hunt, Caputo. Members opposed, Councillors McCreary and Martin.
All right, so we'll go on to item 12.4.1. This was the matter that Conflict Van Tilburg had the conflict on, the Brownfields Financial Tax Incentive Program. So any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the vote.
Item 12.4.1 carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 9-0. Members of council voting in favor as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Sless, McCreary, Carpenter, Samwell, Hunt, Martin, Caputo. Mayor Davis, noting that Councillor Van Tilburg declared a conflict and was not involved in the vote.
All right, we'll move on to item 12.4.7. Planning Committee stipend. Councillor McCreary, you asked this to be separated.
I did, Mayor, to introduce an amendment. You can let me know when you'd like me to do that. I can do it now if you don't wish to have to rule again on a challenge for having 2 speaking opportunities.
No, so what I'll do is, if anybody wants to speak to it, raise your hand. Not seeing anything, go ahead.
Mayor, thank you. The amendment reads as follows, and it would be appended to the end of the resolution. And it would read as follows: that it be noted that the following members of council have elected to opt out of receiving the stipend. And I'm seeking a seconder. I see I have Councillor Martin. Thank you. And Mayor, I want to just briefly address this. We did have a split vote on this last time, and some folks voted for and some voted against. And both those folks voting for and against had some pretty good reasons for what they did or did not do. But I think, we've got some people who conscientiously object to this on the basis of, I guess, taking money that you're giving yourself without having a public process. And so I think it's imperative that we allow people on this committee, tonight, to decide whether or not they would like to receive the additional income. And Mayor, I would say as well that although there are 5 councillors who sit on the committee, the alternates may at some point in time also be called to serve on that committee. So I would hope that those who are voting against it tonight would have the opportunity to say, no, I'm not just voting against it, but I will not take the money. And I would hope that those folks who don't want to receive that can put their hands up and add their names to this list, Mayor.
Okay, a little unusual. So in essence, does this have blanks in it then for people to volunteer to put their names in there?
Mayor, it has blanks just the way we would appoint to committees and boards. So folks in attendance tonight who are on the committee don't want to take the money should raise their hands and volunteer their name to go on here and not take the money. And as well, if you're an alternate to somebody sitting on the committee and you may be elected to sit in on occasion, you could also opt out of receiving the stipend. And as I said, it's, some people may have a conscientious objection to this, Mayor, and that gives them the opportunity to say, I don't want it.
All right, so what I'll rule that's in order. And I'd say this, if you want your name added into that, then that would not be an indication that you would then obviously be required to vote for the amended resolution. You would just be adding your name. So, but first of all, any discussion on the amendment? And the way I'll deal with it is we'll see if the amendment passes. If it does, and we're then dealing with debate on the resolution as amended, people can then volunteer at that point to have their names added.
Mayor, that was not my intent.
Well, that's what I'm ruling.
My intent is that folks can speak to the amendment and offer their name during the debate on the amendment, which I think is in order.
No, I'm not going to. No, I'm going to rule against you. I don't think that's in order. I think first we need the amendment. And then it'll still be on the floor as amended if it's passed, and people can then volunteer to put their names forward at that time. I think it's just cleaner. I mean, there's no sense looking for volunteers unless the amendment passes. So there we go. Any further discussion? All right. Mr. Deputy Clerk, if we could please have a vote on the amendment.
The amendment to item 12.4.7 carries on recorded vote of 8-2. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Sless, McCreary, Samwell, Martin, Caputo, Sicoli, Mayor Davis. Members opposed, Councillors Hunt and Van Tilburg.
Okay, so we have it amended, which currently has some blanks in it, but now the open for debate, discussion, Councillor Sless.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's some confusion around this, and by fielding a couple of phone calls on this and talking to folks in the community, I don't think this is fully understood. And I think it should be made clear. This is a cost saving measure. And is anybody here from planning? Oh, Nicole, could you please come up? I've got a couple of questions for you. Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I'd like clarification from staff. My understanding on this is that because it's held in the daytime, this planning hearing committee, that staff are no longer required to work overtime during a planning hearing because it's done during regular work hours. Hence, they're not in the evening where they're getting overtime for doing the job that they've done all day, and then they come in the evening and do their job again to attend and to adjudicate in a planning hearing. Am I correct in my thinking?
Through the chair, Mayor Davis, to the councillor Nicole Wilmot, Director of Planning and Development Services. Yes, you are correct. So by moving planning committee meetings to the daytime hours, what we are seeing is a reduction in what would be the overtime hours of staff that are required to attend those meetings in the evening after having worked a full 8-hour day.
We don't have numbers here, and I don't expect you to have numbers here, but would you indicate, would this be a substantial saving to the city?
Through the mayor to the councillor, yes, the savings are substantial. I think we have to realize that I think it goes hand in hand when we look at the applications that we've also been able to bring forward through to planning committee. We have held so far 3 planning committee meetings during daytime hours, in which time the committee has been able to consider 12 planning applications. That's into comparison to the previous 8 planning COW PA meetings where we've only dealt with 11 applications. So you're seeing a substantial amount of applications being brought forward through planning committee. It is reasonable to assume that staff are still accumulating overtime hours with respect to just the increase in volume of work that we are bringing forward through this committee. But there is a significant reduction with respect to those overtime hours, where, as I said, staff are attending those meetings during regular business hours, as are the planning consultants and so on. They're attending during regular business hours, so they're no longer accumulating those hours in overtime or taking time in lieu that they would have accumulated for evening meetings.
So just in summary, this is efficient use of time and it's an efficient use of finance. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's an efficient use of time and resources. And I think it's absolutely indicative of this council and this municipality's commitment to streamlining development approvals and approving more homes faster.
Thanks for the clarity.
Councillor
Hunt. Just to clarify, the resolution, though, to provide a stipend to members of council that sit on the planning committee would be regardless if so we're saving staff money, but that's not what this resolution is about. This resolution is about providing additional funds to council or who sits on the planning committee. Am I correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, if anybody wants to volunteer their names, now would be the time. Of course, anybody can at any time decline to receive the stipend if it's passed. So, Councillor Sullivan. Missed you there. Volunteering for your name. Okay, so Councillor Sullivan's given his consent to his name being included. Councillor Hunt? Well, yes, your name to be included. Yes, okay. Okay. Councillor McCreary. You're volunteering? Okay. Seeing nobody else? Oh, sorry, Councillor Samwell. Okay. Yeah. All right, so we'll call the vote then. Not seeing any other volunteers. Whoops.
Excuse me, could you clarify again what this vote is for?
Yes, this vote, Councillor Van Tilburg, is the resolution as it came to us from the Committee of the Whole, which is authorizing the stipend, was amended to provide that named members, on the assumption that the resolution is going to pass, are opting out of receiving the stipend. So we've had various volunteers for that. And so if anybody else.
So if you put your name forward, you're saying no. Is that correct?
To receiving the stipend.
Could I get a list of those who have said yes?
Well, it'd be anybody who's not said no. Right?
Who would that be?
Well, you know, you can figure that out. I think we know who the counselors are, the members of council, and you can tell who has actually volunteered. So.
Oh, I apologize. I dropped my phone and missed part of that, was trying to pick it up.
But I think it's worthwhile to have the clerk confirm who has volunteered.
Just so I understand in its clarity, is this all on the committee or is this as a committee as a whole? Or as a council as a whole? Because I believe we're going to expand this in the future. Is that correct?
Yeah, there'd be anybody who's, because it could be the members that are named, but then again, you can also have a counselor who's not named, who's coming in as an alternate because the named counselor can't attend. So, all right. So, Mr. Deputy Clerk, if you could.
Mayor, if I may ask for clarification, because you have used the word volunteer, and what you really intend to do is to ask folks to put their hands up if they don't want to take the money.
Yeah, volunteering
Right.
not to take the money.
Put your hands up if you don't want to take the money. Yeah.
Okay. We could have from the deputy clerk, please, who has indicated their name. Okay, Councillor Caputo. So who do we have that's their names are in there?
Through the chair, the councillors whose names that are included in the motion as amended are councillors Sullivan, Hunt, McCreary, Samwell, and Caputo.
Anybody else? Not seeing anybody else, so I'll call the vote on the resolution.
Mayor, sorry.
Councillor, just a second. Councillor Carpenter. I think, please assume Councillor Carpenter asking your name to be added.
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I'll call the vote then. It's amended. Yeah, we did. The amendment's passed. Well, hang on, I asked for discussion. And you, for one, I think spoke to this. So does anybody else want to speak to this resolution as amended?
Is it, this is a resolution as amended. So do we not have to amend the names into the resolution?
Well, I have ruled, and we can deal with it by way of 9 different amendments, but
I'm just asking, sorry.
Yeah, I set out the procedure, and that was that it's kind of similar to what we do at appointments committee. I'm kind of following that same practice, that if you want your name to be added into the resolution as someone not to receive the stipend, you then raise your hand to volunteer. And so we've had a number of councillors that have done that. And so I think Councillor McCreary is correct. Now, is anybody else? This is your
I
last
have an
turn.
amendment then.
Sorry.
I have an amendment.
All right.
And that item 12.4.7 be amended that the word stipend be replaced with the words lost time wages. And that in order to obtain the remuneration based on lost time wages, that members of council be required to provide proof of wages lost. And that's based on the body of the statements in the original resolution.
So who's your seconder?
Seeking a seconder.
Okay. Councillor Samwell's your word mate seconding it. Any discussion on that amendment? So, whoa, I've got, okay, hang on. First of all, did you want to say anything to your amendment? First crack at it.
Certainly. People that have been reading the body of the text and the context of working people having to take time off. Many wage workers know that what we use is called lost time wages. And the way that people get reimbursed for those lost time wages is that is what's in the body of the work. So I just want the context of lost time wages in the body of the work. And then generally, if you've lost your time and wages, you get the reimbursement because that is what is in the body. So that's why I'm bringing this forward. This may not have been the way that you wanted it, but I'm just saying because that's in the body and that is how people are taken. Everyone's contacting me saying, yeah, lost time wages is a good thing. People should be reimbursed for time off work. And there can be many different ways. Sometimes you have to take a shift off before if you're working a night shift or either way in order to be awake for the day that the meeting is because now they're in the daytime. So people also don't seem to know that if that meeting only goes a few hours, it's not how many hours that meeting goes. It's that you took this much time. You had to take a day off work regardless and you lose it all. So with the context of the mention of the words that people have to take their time off work, I've just wanted to put into the scope of that context, the lost time wages, which is a very common practice in human resources.
Next to that amendment, I think took Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can't support this amendment. When I worked shift work, there were times where I utilized vacation days or lieu days for council business. And it's hard to document that as lost time because I didn't actually lose any wages. What I gave up was my family time with my family on holidays or vacations or lieu days. And sometimes it was exchange days where I worked a different day to get the day off that I needed. So I didn't actually lose any wages, but I was still sacrificing by working a day that I wasn't scheduled to get the day off that I needed. So this wording would prevent someone who's doing that from receiving the stipend, which I think is counter to the intention of yourself when you move this. So I think this changes the nature of the resolution in a negative way, and I will not be supporting it. Thank you.
Councillor Sikoli.
Yes, while I can appreciate where this is coming from, it's almost impossible for someone like myself to quantify lost time wages. So for that alone, I don't think I will be supporting this. And I just echo some of the sentiments that Councillor Martin stated, that there's a lot more to it. It's not as black and white as this amendment is suggesting. There's time off, there's days in lieu, there's someone like myself who could have been 14 other places, but is spending 8 hours, in council chambers doing work on behalf of the city. So for that reason alone, I will not be supporting this amendment. Thank you.
Well, since I was the one that moved the resolution, kind of the way I looked at it was this, that as I explained, the way we represent the amount of service required of councillors, we make it very clear to the public, it's part-time. That includes those 3 Tuesday evenings per week. And the planning committee that is the second Thursday of each month is usually pretty much a full day required because of the volume, but there's still the meeting on the second Tuesday evening. So it's not like the meeting on Tuesday evening has been canceled. It's been replaced, and there's lots of other items that are not statutory hearings under the Planning Act that are dealt with at that meeting. So there's still those 3 evening meetings a month. And then on top of that, for half of the councillors, for they have to attend the meeting on Thursday, which is turning out to be an all-day meeting. I'd say to somebody, what would you think if your employer said to you, well, you know what, I'm going to need you to work another day. This wasn't part of the deal when you were hired, but now you're going to work another day per month, and that's your day off, but you're not going to get that day off. You're going to work it and you're not going to get paid for it. I think most people would say, well, that's not fair. That isn't what was originally represented as being part of the job. And so to me, I can understand Councillor Van Tilburg's amendment because there's a logic to it, but clearly I look at it differently, and I look at it from that perspective. Both are legitimate, but depends on how you look at it. So with that, Councillor McCurry.
Mayor, thank you. And I'm quite pleased to see your indulgence with an amendment that you probably should have ruled out of order, but I suspect it will be unsuccessful. There's a difference between a stipend and a wage replacement, and you know, I guess if you don't like the resolution, vote against it, and there's still time to add your name to the list of those that won't be taking it.
All right. Okay, seeing no further. Oh, sorry, Councillor Carpenter, you've got your hand up.
Yes, just speaking to it, I think the reason why we got ourselves in this quandary is because we're voting on something that really should be referred to a committee that reviews councillor honorarium. That would be the right place for this. And I thought I heard the mayor say that this is something we didn't expect, like an employer that would ask you to work an extra shift that wasn't part of your deal. But we knew when the election was on that there was a planning committee, and that would be a planning committee would be involved in doing all this work. And all members of council that put their names forward, those that were successful and even those that weren't unsuccessful, knew that there was a planning committee. And the planning committee, if you wanted to sit on it, would require a fair bit of work. I think to avoid all the problems that you're hearing around the table and some of this animosity that's going to come from this, we should simply just refer this to a remuneration committee, which usually takes place every term of council to review council's honorarium, the makeup of council, and so forth. That would be the proper place to do this. And so if this fails, I'd like to move that as a referral.
All right, understood, Councillor Carpenter. So I'm going to call the amendment, Councillor Van Tilburg's amendment. We will call the vote on that amendment.
I do have another amendment.
The amendment fails on a recorded vote of 4-7. Members of the committee voting in favor of the amendment are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel. Members opposed: Councillors Sless, McCreary, Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Sicoli, and Mayor Davis.
Councillor Van Tilburg, you said you have another amendment.
Yes, because I think what we've done is we've made it clear this is a stipend and not dealing with lost time wages as referred to. So what I would just like to see struck when members of the planning committee must take time off from their job to attend these meetings, it's an irrelevant statement. We're going to get it whether we're taking time off from our jobs or not, because it's a stipend. It's if you're on the planning committee and you're at the meeting. And so it just removes any misunderstandings onto what the intent is. I think it's very clear. It's a stipend. It's been mentioned by the mayor exactly why he's put forth the stipend on the extra hours that are being worked. And those reasons are valid to that degree.
Just to help us, Mr. Clerk, can you put the resolution up for us as it came to us from the committee of the whole? Just so we know exactly what this amendment is deleting.
Mayor, as a point of order, that could just be separated for a separate vote.
First, I want to see the wording of the resolution. So I take it what you're asking then, Councillor Van Tilburg, is deleting the third whereas. Fourth whereas. Is that correct?
Is that the one, Chris?
Yeah, that's
the one.
I think that's the one. So it's moved by yourself, seconded by Councillor Martin. He's agreeing to that. So any discussion in respect to that amendment? Seeing none, Mr. Deputy Clerk, please take the vote.
The amendment to item 12.4.7 by removing the fourth paragraph carries on a recorded vote of 9-2. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillor Sullivan, Celeste, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Mayor Davis. Members opposed, Sokoli and McCreary.
So not seeing any other raised hands, Mr. Deputy Clerk, would you please take the vote on the resolution as it's been amended? Councilor Carpenter, I think we're waiting for your vote.
I don't see the resolution as amended in front of me.
So are you asking that that we see the entire wording?
Yes, I'd like to see what I'm voting on.
Okay. Just take a minute for the clerk to prepare that and get that up, since we do have some names we've added in. There you go, Councilor Carpenter. That fourth whereas is out and the names have been added. So if we can, I'm going to ask if we would redo the vote then, since we now have the full resolution in front of us.
Item 12.4.7 as amended carries on a recorded vote of 8-3. Members of council voting in favor as follows: Councillors Celeste, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Martin, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
My vote
Members
is
of
a
council-
no. My vote is a no.
I can note that in the minutes.
So we'll note that in the minutes, Councilor Van Tilburg, you voted no. All right, so that takes us then to the next item that was separated, and it's separated. This is 12.5.2, which is the paramedic services draft 2023 budget. And it's separated because a 2/3 vote is required. And do we have?
That's just here. The back there, to your right.
So I think we should acknowledge that we do have Chief Kings here.
He's got questions.
Well, just let me finish the introductions first, please. So Chief Kings, you wouldn't mind coming forward. I think I'm going to allow a little bit of an unusual situation. I'll allow questions to go to you directly if there are any questions, because you technically are an employee of the county.
I have county employees with me, Your Honor.
Right.
For any financial.
Well, this is great to see you. And you rushed from a County of Brant meeting, I understand. They did. Oh, you've been here. Well, why didn't you come forward and introduce yourself? But if you bring forward your staff, just so you can introduce them to us. And just so that people at home know, the paramedics, Brantford Paramedics is overseen by the County of Brant. We do have a joint governance committee, that equal representation from City Council and the County of Brant. And of course, City of Brantford makes a very sizable contribution to the budget.
Correct.
So who do you have with you today?
Have Heather Boyd and Heather Mifflin.
Well, thank you very much for coming to our council chamber. And so now I'm going to we have the draft budget open for approval, and certainly questions are in order. And Councillor Martin, you said you've got some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thanks for coming, Russ. When we spoke on the phone, you weren't sure if the supervisor position was going forward or if that had been cut by county council?
To you, Mr. Chair.
Good evening to the chair. That was not approved by the Paramedic Services Committee. So at this point, that won't be going forward. We will be doing some internal reviews of the deployment models and such this year. So it will likely be a consideration for 2024.
Okay, were there any other changes from what we received?
The only other one was there was a decision package for a consultant to do some deployment model reviews. That also was not approved by the Paramedic Services Committee, so that one also is not going forward.
And do you have the dollar value of the savings by cutting those out?
The amount that came to you in your report that we sent was the amount, not including those two decision packages.
Oh, okay, because I thought the supervisor change was still in the package that we received.
I think the decision package was sent to you, but it wasn't included in the numbers that we send. The operating numbers are, the decision packages would have been above those numbers.
Okay, and the increase for cross-border billing, is that still in then?
Yes, the increase to cross-border billing is still in. We do still anticipate some increase in cross-border billing this year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Hunt.
Through the mayor to the chief, and thank you for coming. I know that we did see a report regarding when we can expect the additional 24/7 ambulance to be in service. Can you address the timelines for that service to be available for the community?
Through you, Mr. Chair. In discussions with the ambulance committee, we had asked for a 24-hour vehicle. In being financially responsible through the ambulance committee, we had agreed on a staggered start. The first one would start once the budget would be approval, as close to March 1st as possible. The second vehicle would have been basically starting up in July 1st, adding the additional 12 hours to the 24-hour complement. Another reason it was staggered was getting the actual vehicles in with all the chip shortages and vehicles and chassis shortages. We were anticipating a little bit of a staggered start that might help us out.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Sluts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome. Chief, I go by the hospital every day on my way down to City Hall from my home. And it looks like the ambulances are not stacked up as bad as they were. Are we making progress on the offloading issue?
To you, Mr. Chair, it's basically constant. We have our peak times that start about 7 o'clock in the morning and go to about midnight. After midnight, it starts going down. This past month has been really bad on all of us because we've relied on our neighboring municipalities to do over 200 calls in our community this past month that just went by. So the hospital is doing their best, but the increase in the flu, the viruses, the respiratory viruses and stuff like that, they're all struggling.
Okay, well, it looks like you're getting them off the lot faster because usually that lot's pretty full and it's looking better. At least from my perspective, it looked a lot better. There weren't as many sitting around waiting to get offloaded.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the last week has been a godsend to all of us because we have not had them stacked up, but previous to that, our largest amount was 14 parked in our parking lot, and we only have 9 vehicles on the road.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor McCreary.
Welcome, folks. I wonder if you can advise if there's been an increase in the number of requests made by ambulance to police for support?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not that we're aware of. There's no large or a spike in increase. I would call it average amount of calls on our day-to-day business.
And these would be calls where your folks have a little bit of trepidation in dealing with the public.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, we have not noticed basically a staggered or even with like the overdoses and stuff, right? There has not been a significant increase. If we mapped it throughout the year, we might notice small spikes, but currently it's constant.
Do you keep statistics?
Yes, sir.
Would you be able to take a guess at the frequency of those support calls?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not being able to look at that data and we've never narrowed it down, I would not be giving you an accurate answer.
Would you be able to provide that though?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would do my best through our dispatch center and our central Ministry of Health reporting. We'd be able to come up with those numbers for you.
That would be helpful if it wouldn't be two owners.
No.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. So Mr. Deputy Clerk, if you could please share the resolution, because there's only one part of it that needs a 2/3 vote. And I'm going to call for a separate vote on that. So to the council members, it's subparagraph D that requires a 2/3 vote. So A, B, C, and E simply require a majority vote. So I'm going to separate them at the request of staff. And I'm first going to call the vote on A, B, C, and E.
Clauses A, B, C, and E carries unanimously on a recorded vote. Members of council voting in favor as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Celeste, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
All right, so then paragraph D, needing a 2/3 vote. So I'll take the vote on that separately.
Clause D carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 11-0. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Van Tilburg, Samuel, Carpenter, Hunt, McCreary, Martin, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Sokoli, and Davis. Mayor Davis.
Right. All right, so the next item that was separated, I asked for it to be separated. It's item 12.5.4. Coming to us from the Finance Committee. And it's the allocation of a one-time 2022 surplus items of $6,551,834 and transferring that to reserves. And in particular, this is a very unusual surplus to have. It's a one-time shot. It's due primarily to two things. One, there was a readjustment on our WISB premium, and which generated pretty much a one-time surplus, a one-time payment, and also the dividends, special dividends that came to us from the merger of iHydro Corporation with Energy Plus, the Cambridge North Dumfries. And you recall that generated some one-time special dividends because the transaction unlocked certain values for all three municipalities. And so this surplus of $6,551,835 is very unusual. It's one time only. And the resolution that comes to you from the Finance Committee is that $815,525 is to be going to the Council Priorities Reserve. And this $5,739,310 to the Hospital Redevelopment Reserve Fund, which we're going to establish this evening by one of our bylaws. So this is very, very significant. It's a one-time surplus generated primarily by the merger. And the monies are going to be held, the large portion of them, in a reserve for the hospital rebuild. And you probably heard from me ad nauseum that the hospital rebuild, stage one's been approved. It's a likely $5 billion project. And the call that will be made to the local area served by the hospital will be around $200 million. And that means that our municipality, along with the county of Brant and hopefully Six Nations, will be contributing. And if we don't, we're not going to see a new hospital. And in fact, if we do this now at an early stage, it's going to send a very important signal to the hospital and the hospital foundation, the businesses and residents in our community. And also, most importantly, to the provincial government, we're serious. We're serious about wanting a new hospital, and we're prepared to do our part to make sure that the contribution is made. And so this will be the first step towards what will probably take 6 to 8, 9, 10 years that we'll have to build up this reserve before the big ask is made of our municipality. But if we don't start doing it now and setting aside money now, especially when you have such a one-time surplus, then it's not going to be this council. It'll be the next council. They're going to struggle to be able to make that commitment to the new hospital build without digging deep into debt or increasing taxes. So I think this is really, it's very much by our finance committee, excellent forward financial planning for the benefit of the community. And I'd urge members to support this as it was supported unanimously at the finance committee. Councillor McCurry.
Mayor, thank you. I'm happy to support this, but I do have a couple of questions and I would like to put it into context. Through you to staff, Clause A, could you explain what we mean by transfer to offset the 23 budget?
Through you, Mayor Davis, to Councillor McCurry. Sorry, with respect to actually CI?
Correct.
Okay. A large portion of what we're presenting here is the one-time surplus was a result of the closeout dividend. And when we built the 2023 budget with the increased amount of dividends that we were estimating to see initially through the new company, it was an estimate. That transaction wasn't finalized. It was really just an estimate. So we overshot that estimate just a little bit based on what we're seeing will be the schedule, so that there's no impact moving into 2023. We just want to take a small amount of that surplus to bring it into the 2023 budget. So there is no impact there, and the rest of the monies be transferred to the new hospital redevelopment reserve
So
fund.
does that mean that we'll be looking for 812,525 in 24?
We don't expect that's going to be the case.
Okay.
There's definitely a growing schedule that we're expecting
Okay.
to see.
And could you tell me what the balance is in the hospital redevelopment reserve fund prior to this?
It's currently zero. The reserve fund doesn't exist. So the authority to establish that reserve fund and deposit these funds and the necessary bylaw to do that will come later this evening.
And what's our anticipated increase in 2023 in terms of our global budget?
We're still preparing the operating budget for the estimates committee. It's really still at a staff level
It used
right
to
now.
be 4.8%. Is it still 4.8%?
I can answer that. The report that was submitted pre the election time was an estimate was 4.79%.
What does that represent in dollars?
$7 million. It's approximately just over $6.5 to $7 million roughly.
Thank you. As I said, I'm happy to support this, Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's nice to see that the merger with our friends in Cambridge and North Dumfries is yielding increased dividends. And if the projections are right, those dividends will continue to increase. And I'm wondering if staff can put together a package where we look at putting 80% of the increase each year into this hospital reserve fund. That will still allow 20% of the increase to come into the city for budgeting purposes, but it allows us to have an increasing amount going into the hospital reserve. Something for council to consider perhaps at our priority setting.
Ms. Rutchings?
Yes, if I can, in the report to the councillor, we do plan on bringing back a report on how we're going to try to finance the hospital in the late spring Q1, early Q2. That is one of the ideas that the treasurer and myself have been bantering back and forth as well, councillor. So you may have a bug in my office or something, because that's what we've been talking about. We didn't come up with 80%, but we're talking about the increase and looking at that for the hospital. But we will be bringing something back.
Glad to hear you're already ahead of me. Thank you.
Councillor Sluss.
Thank you. Has there been a formula established for the cost sharing of the roughly 200 million that has to be raised locally by the host municipalities, namely us, the Six Nations and the county?
No, there has, through Mr. Mayor, no, there's been no agreement made between the three parties as of yet. There's been some general suggestion by the CEO of the hospital about based on population and stuff, but the three parties have not sat down. But if you look at just general population, that would put us in well over the $100 million mark based on population.
Okay. And then correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor, but if we continue to put money into the reserve for the hospital redevelopment, and we're doing it at faster rates than comparable communities that are also vying to get a new hospital, does that not push us up in the queue to get a hospital sooner?
Yes.
So anything we can do to dump money into this is good for the entire community.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to our finance staff. So we're taking out of the $6.5 million surplus, we're taking 812,000 and putting it towards the budget to lower the increase. Is that correct?
Through Mayor Davis to Councillor Carpenter. Yes, that's correct.
But we could take some more out of the 5.7 million that we're allocating to hospital fund, which is a good cause, and reduce the tax increase even further, could we not?
The feeling behind this recommendation from staff was to specifically address what we expect will be a gap in the dividends revenue schedule for 2023 versus 2022. So we believed it's prudent to take some of those additional dividends from the closeout and apply that directly towards that issue, because it will rectify itself in future budgets.
But we could be using some of the other funds to reduce the budget so that we didn't have to have a large tax increase. That's still an option, is it not?
You know, it's always certainly an option, but I would always caution council that if we're looking to take money out of reserves to fund ongoing operational items, you're going to dig yourself into a bit of a hole where we can't continually draw on those reserves to fund those ongoing items. So this specifically addresses a one-time matter.
You need to reserve every year. You need
That's
to be
right.
doing that every year to find that funds. Okay, I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Not seeing any other hands raised. Mr. Deputy Clerk, please take the vote.
Item 12.5.4 carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Celeste McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samuel Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
All right, so we'll move on to item 13. There are no urgent reports. We do have one resolution on the evening's agenda. Councillor McCreary, can you please move item 14.1 and state your seconder?
I shall, Mayor, and my seconder is my ward mate, Councillor Martin. And the resolution reads as follows: that the sale of 17 acres of land described as part of lot 35 concession 1, part of the PIN number shown on part 1 on the draft reference plan to the Brant Haldeman Norfolk Catholic District School Board, and the option to purchase agreement be approved, and the required sales bylaw to authorize the sale of the lands be presented to City Council for consideration. And Mayor, I'll just speak to this briefly. This is a significant event in the history of our city, and this is going to mean the creation of a new Catholic high school in the annexed lands north of Power Line. We are looking at this being concluded in the next few years. It'll be a catalyst for development. It will support some of our northern developments, and it's a good news story for the community, and it's a good news story for council.
All right, not seeing any other raised hands. We'll put Mr. Deputy Clerk, please take the vote. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this is the Catholic Board has been very forward thinking. You know, they built the Catholic high school in Shelters Lane. They were the first ones there in Shelters Lane before most of the houses, or any of the houses, actually got started there. And then, of course, the houses sprung up around the Catholic school. And the Catholic school, of course, was the recipient of most of those residents decided to pay Catholic school board taxes because the school was convenient and close by. And the Catholic board has flourished since then. So the same thing will happen north of Powerland Road in the city of Brantford when the Catholic board builds a new high school north of Powerland Road. And you'll see what will be Shellers Lane north of Powerland Road be developed all along the Powerland Road corridor in the next 5 or 10 years, along with the new high school that'll be there in advance of those homes. And I dare say that again, the board will be capturing a lot of that, of those students towards that high school. But it gives the city also an opportunity to look for other opportunities within that land, whether we have a community center, whether we partner with the school board on a library, whether we even look for some sports facilities. We got sporting groups that need sports facilities and need a home, a permanent home that they haven't got at this point. There are other opportunities to coordinate and cooperate with the board on this property, as we have a lot more land there than the 17 acres, but it'll give us an opportunity to work further with the board on other opportunities. It is a good news story. Thank you.
Councillor Sluss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Councillor Carpenter is absolutely right. There's an opportunity here to increase our inventory of playing fields in the city, and they're always at a premium, and they're always looking for practice space and game space. So I think that is a good thing, and it will be a part of the school board property. For those that are watching and not really sure, north of Powerline's a rather generic term for where this is. It's off of Powerline between Ivanhoe and Plant Farm Road. So if somebody's trying to visualize where this is, that's where it is. I think that will define it for folks, and they can visualize something going there that probably resembles Assumption College, but it sounds like it's going to be a beautiful complex. They've been approved, and it's not something that they're hoping to do. It's something that they are doing. So something to look forward to, exciting for the community. It adds another secondary school to our inventory, and that's always a good thing. And the funds coming from it are nothing to get to sneeze at either. I believe you're approaching $10 million for the sale of the land. And again, that's money that can certainly be used by the city. And I think we discovered a pretty good place to put that this evening in the hospital rebuild. All in all, a good deal, and I'm very pleased to support this, Mr. Mayor.
All right, not seeing any other raised hands, Mr. Deputy. Councillor Martin.
Yes, I fully support this. I think it's going to be great for Northern Ward 3. I think Councillor Sluss might be a little bit off in the location. I think it's closer to Greenfield and Old Farm Road. I haven't seen it exactly on a map, but I believe that's a better description of the location. I'd hate for false information to be circulating out there, but we could get that clarified from staff. I think would be appreciated. Thank you.
Where is it, Mr. Hutchings?
It is across the street from Greenfield, close to not exactly around the corner of Park and Powerline, but across the street from Greenfield.
Call the vote.
Item 14.1 carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 11-0. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Van Tilburg, Samuel, Carpenter, Hunt, McCreary, Martin, Sluss, Caputo, Sullivan, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
All right, so we have two notices of motion. Councillor McCreary, would you please read the title of your notice of motion?
Yes, Mayor. A review of city-owned lands for development opportunities.
And Councillor Sluss, your notice motion?
Review of portable signs.
All right, so now we're moving into bylaws, and we've got a revised bylaw listing. We've added a bylaw 19222 regarding 84 Linden Road, and also 193 2022, which is in respect to the lands that we just agreed would be sold to the school board. And so I'm going to be looking to, I believe, Councillor Sluss, you've got the motion for first and second reading of the bylaws. If you would please read the bylaws and state your seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself, seconded by my ward mate, Councillor Caputo. that leave be given the mover and seconder to introduce the following bylaws for first, second reading. Namely, bylaw 170-2022 is a bylaw to adopt amendment number 4, the City of Brantford official plan envisioning our city 2051, re 620 Coburn Street West, land planning appeal tribunal decision of May 5, 2021. Bylaw 176-22 is a bylaw to authorize the execution of agreements individually dated and listed on Schedule A attached here too, namely 1, lease agreement between the Corporation of the City of Brantford and Wilfrid Laurier University regarding 220 Coburn Street, Committee of the Whole Operations Report 2022-12-06. And item 2, amending agreement to the municipality contribution agreement between the Corporation of the City of Brantford and the Ontario Lotteries and Gaming Corporation regarding sportsbook revenue, Finance Committee Report 2022-12-14. Bylaw 177-2022 is a bylaw to amend bylaw 160-90, being a bylaw to regulate the use of lands and location and use of buildings and structures in the City of Brantford, 166 through to and including 176 Greenwich Street. Planning Committee Report 2022-12-08. Bylaw 178-2022 is a bylaw to adopt amendment number 2 for the city's official plan envisioning our city 2051 regarding supporting people and Business Act Bill 13, more homes for everyone. Report 2022-12-08. Bylaw 179-2022 is a bylaw to amend bylaw 160-90, being a bylaw to regulate the use of lands and location and use of buildings and structures in the City of Brantford, re 461 to 467 West Street. Bylaw 180-2022 is a bylaw to provide for an interim tax levy and to provide for the payment of taxes for the year 2023. Finance Committee Report 2022-12-14. Bylaw 181-2022 is a bylaw to establish a hospital redevelopment reserve fund. Finance Committee Report 2022-14-12. Bylaw 182-2022 is a bylaw to amend bylaw 70-2010, being a bylaw to adopt various City of Brantford policies by adopting Finance Policy 016, Securities for Subdivision and Development Services, Policy 2022-698. Bylaw 183-2022 is a bylaw to amend bylaw 132-2022, being a bylaw to authorize the acquisition of Wilfrid Laurier University's interest in 36 through to 40 Queen Street, Brantford, and to delegate authority to council to pass bylaws to authorize the long-term financing of such acquisition. Bylaw 184-2022 is a bylaw to amend Chapter 26, Board and Advisory Committee Duties and Functions of the City of Brantford Municipal Code 2022-601. Bylaw 185-2022 is a bylaw to amend bylaw 70-2022 to adopt various City of Brantford policies by amending corporate policy 035, public arts policy 2022-601. Bylaw 186-2022 is a bylaw to appoint citizen members to liaison to various boards and committees. Appointments Committee Report 2022-12-15. Bylaw 187-2022 is a bylaw to amend bylaw 70-2010, being a bylaw to adopt various City of Brantford policies, repealing corporate policy 025, re-electronic LED readograph sign policy 2022-551. Bylaw 188-2022 is a bylaw of the City of Brantford to relieve certain parts of lots or blocks from provisions of Section 55005 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 as amended, part lot by lot control, Winfield Phase 8A, blocks 263 and 266. Bylaw 189-2022 is a bylaw to amend bylaw 81-14, being a bylaw to establish honoraria to be paid to members of council and members of the Police Services Board. Committee of the Whole Planning Administration Report 2022-12-13. Bylaw 190-2022 is a bylaw to adopt amendment number 3 to the City of Brantford's official plan envisioning our city 2051 regarding 83 Craig Street. Bylaw 191-2022 is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Brantford with respect to the meeting held on December 20th, 22. Bylaw 192-2022 is a bylaw to amend bylaw 160-90, being a bylaw to regulate the use of lands and location and use of buildings and structures in the City of Brantford, removal of the H holding provision at 84 Linden Road, Phase 1. Bylaw 193-2022 being a bylaw to approve the sale of certain lands and premises within the city of Brantford, Powerline Road, 2022-740, Special City Council 2022. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, so I'm going to ask bylaw 181 and 192 be separated for discussion purposes. Anybody want anything else separated? If not, all right. We'll call the vote then on all the bylaws first and second reading other than 181 and 192.
Got the Councilor Carpenter's hand up.
Oh, sorry, Councilor Carpenter?
Yes, I would like this, a separate vote on 183, 189 through to including third reading, please,
Sorry, 183
and 189.
and 189. Okay. All right, so let's, Mr. Deputy Clerk, could please call the vote on all the bylaws except those four.
The first and second reading of all bylaws not separated for discussion purposes carries unanimously on a recorded vote of 11-0. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Celeste McCreary, Carpenter, Van Toborg, Samwell, Hunt, Marn, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis.
All right, Councilor Carpenter, we'll deal with the two you wanted to separate. We'll deal with 183 first, discussion, followed by vote. Sorry, Councilor Carpenter, you asked. You just wanted a separate vote, I take it.
I just want them separate. They could be voted on together if you like.
Okay. All right. So unless anybody else objects, we'll take 183 and 189 together and
Let's separate.
all right, we'll separate them. First, 183.
First and second reading of bylaw 183-2022 carries on a recorded vote of 10-1. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Celeste McCurry, Van Toborg, Samuel Hunt, Marn, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis. Members opposed, Councillor Carpenter.
All right, and 189.
First and second reading of bylaw 189/2022 carries on a recorded vote of 7-4. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors McCurry, Marn, Celeste, Caputo, Sokoli, Mayor Davis, Councillor Van Toborg. Members opposed, Councillors Samuel, Carpenter, Hunt, and Sullivan.
All right, in bylaw 181/2022, I asked that to be separated because it's very symbolically significant. It's the bylaw to establish the Hospital Redevelopment Reserve Fund, which we made a decision to fund earlier this evening. And so this is the bylaw that actually sets up that reserve fund. Seeing no further comment, take the vote on first and second reading.
The first and second reading of bylaw 181/2022 carries unanimously on a recorded votes. Members of the committee voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Van Toborg, Samuel, Carpenter, Hunt, McCurry, Marn, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
Lastly, 192/2022. And who says bylaws are boring? This one's not boring. This one has to do with Costco. And it is in reference to 84 Linden Road. That is the land, and it specifically refers to the land that's between the mall and the 403 where the Costco is going to be located. And this is removing of the H provision. It's being done because the site plan and the building permit now have conditional approval. And those were those that were filed by Costco. And so there has been an agreement by all parties concerned, approving those conditional upon certain things such as their real estate deal closing, conditional on some financing, and a few other minor matters. But what this represents is a very significant step towards the construction and the establishment of a Costco in our community, which I think we can look forward to seeing the construction beginning next summer. And it also represents really the end of what it is that the city has needed to do to make this transaction possible. And it's come about as a lot of hard work, dedicated work by our staff and various partner agencies. And I thank them for their hard work over the last, 4 years, 5 years. Anyways, so that's, you wouldn't know it from the description of the bylaw, but that's what that one's about. Councilor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I want to highlight this too, because it's probably been the biggest question that we've get asked for many years. And it's been a lot more than 4 or 5 years. It's been more like 9 years. It was Mayor Friel was the mayor at the time when the Costco first approached us, when we first started looking for a location on Morton Ave and Gretzky. And then it got moved over to the Linden Park Mall property. And now we've got a final location. It's finally coming to fruition. So it's been, this will be the third successive council that's been working on getting Costco here. So it is good news story, and the public's been waiting to find an answer to this for a long time. So it's a good news story for those that are Costco shoppers, and good for employment.
And I should emphasize that it's not the final step. There are other steps that have to be taken by the owners of the land and Costco, but this is the final step for what the city needs to, and thus very significant. Yes, Councillor Celeste.
I certainly have my fingers crossed, Mr. Mayor. We've been on the cusp so many times and then been yanked back from the edge of the cliff that I certainly hope that this is the final thing, and that, as you indicate, next summer we'll see construction. And my understanding in talking with folks about this, the construction is very, very expedient. When Costco built something, they build it in very, very, very short order. So you're certainly going to have stuff by next fall. If they're starting in the summer, by next fall, people will be shopping there.
But of note, there's a lot of site preparation to be done. Okay, any other comment? Otherwise, we'll take the vote on the first and second reading of bylaw 192, 2022.
The first and second reading of bylaw 192, 2022 carries unanimously on recorded votes. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Sluss, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samwell, Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Sicoli, and Mayor Davis.
Councillor Sullivan, I understand you have the resolution for third and final reading.
Yes, this has been seconded by my ward mate, Councillor Sicoli, that all bylaws having been received a first and second reading be taken as read a third time and be finally passed and signed by the mayor and the clerk.
Councillor Carpenter, did you want 183 and 189 separated for voting purposes?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. Anybody want anything else separated? Yes, Councillor Martin.
No, I'd just like to ask a question about 183.
Okay. All right. So we'll take 183 first. Questions?
Yeah, just through you to staff, if someone could confirm, this is the purchase from Laurier to enable affordable housing in this site?
This was if I can through Mr. Mayor, this is we've passed a bylaw to purchase the affordable housing with Lucy Marco residence. This will be in addition, the renovations to that to expand it from 29 units, I believe, to 52 units. So it's doubling it up, increasing more affordable housing in the city.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm surprised someone separated this to vote against it without.
All right, well,
giving a reason why.
that's out of order. Let's just deal please with the vote. So we'll call the vote then on 183, third reading.
Third reading of bylaw 183-2022 carries unanimously on a recorded vote. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillors Sullivan, Sluss, McCreary, Carpenter, Van Tilburg, Samwell, Hunt, Martin, Caputo, Sicoli, and Mayor Davis.
Okay, we'll go on to 189. Any discussion or comment? Seeing none. Have to vote on that.
The third reading of bylaw 189/2022 carries on recorded vote of 7-4. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Mayor Davis, Councillor Sokoli, Caputo, Sless, Marn, McCreary, and Tilborg.
I'm a
Members
no
opposed-
on that, please. Thank you.
Pardon me?
I'm a no on that, please. Thank you.
I will note that in the minutes. Members opposed, Councillor Van Tilborg, Samuel, Carpenter, Hunt, and Sullivan.
All right, so the balance of the bylaws for third reading.
The third reading of all bylaws not separating for discussion purposes carries on a recorded vote of 11-0. Members of council voting in favor are as follows: Councillor Sullivan, Celeste McCurry, Carpenter, Van Tilborg, Samuel, Hunt, Marn, Caputo, Sokoli, and Mayor Davis.
All right, so we'll move then to ward announcements as I'm signing the bylaws for the last time in 2022. We're going to start to the right. We started the left last time. So Councillor Van Tilburg, you're up first.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And you're going to be here a long time because I know what Mandy's got coming for announcements.
She's going to be the last, given what the way I'm doing it tonight. So Councillor Carpenter, you're next.
I just wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Stay safe out there. And please remember to donate to the food bank, give to charitable organizations over this holidays and try and help someone out.
Councillor Curry.
I will reiterate the season's greetings. Merry Christmas to all. We're expecting snow in the next little while, and I would ask that you be kind to your neighbors and make sure your walks are cleared of snow and salted to make it safe. As Councillor Carpenter said, there are a lot of folks in need this time of year. Be generous. Give some thought to making a donation of food or money to the SPCA, who look after the little furry guys that need adoption, and be kind.
Councillor Sless.
Yes, ditto on the season's greetings to everybody. Also, the kids are out of school starting Friday, so they're wired. They're ready for Christmas. Be careful driving with snow coming and kids getting out all on the same day. Just take a little extra time and make sure everybody gets to enjoy Christmas and everybody's safe and healthy. And just finally, the mayor's levy is on New Year's Day from 1 to 3 at the Gretzky Center. Given the location, I would suggest you bring skates if you have skates. If you don't, come and enjoy yourself anyway, because I'm sure it'll be quite a good day. So again, Merry Christmas.
Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, once again, Merry Christmas to everybody. And a special Merry Christmas to a former councillor from the 70s, Doug McCall, who lost his wife within this last week. I send my condolences out to him, as I'm sure this council does. And think about actually supporting the Salvation Kettle campaign that's going on out there. Thank you.
Councillor Scully.
Yes, thank you. Me and my family, we celebrate Christmas, so I will say happy Merry Christmas to you, but I hope everyone out in Ward 1 has a wonderful holiday season, celebrating their preferred holiday, and safe, happy New Year's as well. Thank you so much.
Councillor Caputo.
Yes, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to all of you who will be spending time with your families while I'm still at my other job right through the whole process. And I look forward to a wonderful 2023. Thank you for everybody accepting me.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, or whatever celebrations your religion has this time of year. If we get the snow that they're forecasting, please, if you can, don't park your vehicle on the street. It makes it easier for our snow clearing crews. And if you find that you have to drive in a storm, be very careful. We don't want anybody to get into any accidents, minor or serious, because none of them are any fun. Good luck.
Counselor Hunt.
Yes, so from my family to everyone watching, very Merry Christmas and a healthy, happy New Year. I just want to wish everyone, whatever celebration that you're undertaking at this time of year, that it is joyful for you and your family. And I'm also going to echo my ward mates' push for please consider donating to the food bank. And also Councillor McCreary's push to look after our furry friends by donating to the SPCA. Thank you.
I guess we're saving the best to last. Is that right, Councillor Stanmore?
I would have to say so. All right, so I just wanted to mention that BL's free food giveaways with Compassion Ministries. They've given over 100 purses stuffed with essential items and 300 stockings to members of our community. They have some upcoming giveaways that I wanted to mention that are Thursday, December 22nd at Woodman, Friday, December 23rd at Harmony United Church at 268 Marlborough, and Tuesday, December 27th at Woodman again for free food giveaways. And then the Eagle Place Community Association held their annual Eagle Place Christmas, which they haven't been able to do indoors for a few years. So they hosted 40 families, and they're also sponsoring 60 Christmas meals to be given out on Christmas Day, as well as having a holiday decorating contest. So I wanted to make sure that people take the time to drive through the neighborhood and to see those entries. I also wanted to mention that Belonging Brant hosts a place to be every Thursday at the downtown branch of the library from 2 to 3:30, and everyone is welcome there. And a really interesting one, the Grand River Council on Aging, as well as the Retired Teachers and Education Workers District 40 are partnering with the are partnering to look at the interest in a men's shed. And so what that would be is a men's shed where men get together and do woodworking projects, music, cooking, bike repairs, all different sorts of activities. So there's a few dates coming up for that to learn a bit more about it and to share your thoughts on that. And that's January 27th, February 24th, and March 31st, happening at Grand River Community Health Center at 363 Coburn Street from 1 to 3 p.m. Thank you. And Merry Christmas to everyone.
Sorry, thank you very much. That was very informative. So I wanted to also confirm what Councillor Sluss said. We decided to change the mayor's levy. Really haven't been able to do it the last 3 years. Used to be in the armories, used to be very traditional and formal. So we're going with a family-based mayor's levy on New Year's Day, Wayne Gretzky Center. Free skating, hot chocolate, kids' games. Should be a fun afternoon for the family. Also, of course, we have the Harmony Square celebrations New Year's Eve, starting around 9, some great bands and the ball drop at midnight. Again, not having seen that for the last 3 years, this is going to be something I'm sure we're all going to look forward to and we're all going to attend, right, council members? And then, of course, I've got to mention that as of this weekend with the snow, people will be able to toboggan for the first time legally at Arrowdale. And by mid-January, we'll be able to use the dog park, which should be constructed by then. So with that, I'm going to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday, and a very prosperous New Year.